Hello everybody and welcome to another watercolor tutorial. We're painting a beautiful sun-setting lake scene today. And the first thing I'm doing is covering my piece of paper with a layer of water using a mop brush. And I've linked the mop brush that I use in the description. It's a Winsor & Newton and I've been using it for years. I love it. So I'm just wetting the back side of my piece of paper first before flipping it and doing the front side. And I've started doing this recently because it prevents the curling and buckling of the paper when you're painting like a very wet painting, I guess, when you have to do like a whole wash in the background. So I definitely recommend doing that. And thank you, I've said this in previous videos, but thank you to my viewers who suggested this to me many months ago. It has definitely solved a lot of my issues. Okay, so now that your paper is completely wet, we are going to grab some blue watercolor. So we're going to be painting I guess top 2/3 is where we're going to have our horizon line, right about here. So just above that horizon line, about here, we want to leave a white space because our setting sun is going to be there. And if you have masking fluid or you just want to use acrylic paint after, that's completely like you can do that for sure, but I don't have any masking fluid. So I personally will not be doing that. It's probably much easier though if you do have masking fluid. I've seen it in other people's tutorials. That stuff is pretty neat. But I'm just combining a variety of colors here. A little bit of pink, yellow, just to make this setting sun really pretty. So again, my sun is going to be about here. And I do want to have a lot more yellow around this area. And I'm just gonna extend some of that yellow here because this is our lake portion, like the bottom 2/3 is where our lake is going to be. And I'm just creating a little bit more blue over here for our lake because it's gonna be darker in this corner just based on how I plan to paint my trees. But yes, we are adding a significant more amount of blue on the bottom part because we do want to make it look like a lake, right? Just lifting off paint in this location just to bring out that sun. That looks about good for me. I'm gonna let this dry before we move on to the next step. Okay, so once it's dry, we're gonna move on and paint the horizon line here. So like I said earlier, our horizon line is going to be about here, kind of in the top 1/3 of our space. So I'm just going to take black watercolor. I already have that on my brush, and just paint as straight of a line as I can. All the way across, just like that. And when we have our straight line, we want to make the top part of that line kind of rough because we want to make it look like there are trees growing. But before I do that, I'm just straightening it out a little bit. I'm just taking my black watercolor. It's very pigmented, by the way. I don't have a lot of water on my brush. And we're just bringing that horizon line up a little bit. And we're creating this tree line basically. So we can make it a little bit rough by kind of, I wouldn't quite call this dotting, but it's like sideways dotting. That's basically what we're doing here. And it actually might be easier if you use a bigger brush. It'll fill a lot more space. So you can even paint the bulk of it with the big brush and then go back in with your detail work. See, so I just did the bulk of it, and now I'm going on with my smaller brush, my size 1 by Winsor & Newton, and just making that tree line a lot more jagged. Like that. And it doesn't even have to be, you know, very abstract the way that I'm making it. You're welcome to paint like detailed, very obvious pine trees, for example, coming out from the horizon. For example, like this. Okay, we spent a little bit too much time on that horizon line. Sometimes I can't help myself. I just want to make it as perfect as I can. But I'm really quickly just going to add a reflection. And I'm just leaving a very small gap there. And I'm painting a very watered down reflection here. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to do is create my ridge line over on this side. So I'm going to kind of cover up quite a bit of it actually, and it's just going to run from over here upwards like that. And while that is still wet, I'm gonna add some like very tiny details, like little blades of grass sticking out like that. We are going to be painting trees, of course, coming from here, but I do want to add those little tiny details just to make sure that they are kind of blended in with that ridge that we've painted. So I'm going to have a tree coming from over here. Now we want these guys to be as dark as possible because they are the most, they're in the foreground. They're closest to the viewer. So do try to use very pigmented black here, like very little water and a lot of pigment. I'm gonna pick up even more black and try to make my foreground as dark as possible before it dries. So I'm gonna add another tree. Now a tree that's going to be coming from here is going to be even closer to the viewer, so that's why I picked up my size 14 brush, just to make it a little bit easier to paint. But this guy is going to extend beyond the length of the piece of paper to make it look like it's extra close to the viewer. And I'm also going to make it split. So you can have your branches overlapping, how I'm making them. You can make these trees completely your own, as detailed or as minimal as you want them to be. You can even add some very light details in the water itself, like little reeds growing with some shadow, like very light shadows coming from them. And that is basically our lake painting. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, hit like on this video, and I'll see you in the next one.